Hello everyone, Crow here, and this is a response video to IntellivisionDude's What Do You Consider Retro Gaming? And he actually didn't tag me in this, but it was an open tag anyway. But the reason he didn't tag me in this is because I did a previous tag a couple videos ago that was What Got You Into Retro Gaming, where I kind of defined what I thought retro gaming was. And just to reiterate, what I said in that video was that I think we have our current generation of games, or modern gaming, if you will, which is the PS3, the Wii, and the Xbox 360. Then you have the previous generation, and I have to look over there so I can remember, which was PS2, GameCube, Xbox, and even the Dreamcast. And then any generation before that, therefore 2 generations ago or more, I considered retro gaming. But at the same time I was saying that, and I think I may have even implied this in the video, I don't use the term retro gaming a lot. It just holds no significance for me, mainly because I grew up playing all those systems, and it just doesn't seem retro to me. And I saw a couple other responses to this What Do You Consider Retro Gaming tag, and the one that comes to mind is J-Boy Pac-Man, and he said he doesn't like the term retro gaming. And in comments for that, I saw another comment from, I believe, Atari Leaf that also said that he doesn't like the term retro gaming. So they got me thinking, and he was like, you know what? I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that doesn't really kind of like the term retro gaming. And I had to think about this, and even when I responded to the other tag, I had to look up exactly what retro meant, because it has to mean something. And basically, what I got from various different sources is when you talk about retro, it could be like retro clothes, well, vintage clothing. But when I think of retro, I think of, designs, stuff like that. And basically, when I looked it up, it's a trend or something like that. Like, bell-bottom pants were popular. I can't even remember when. But, if a trend like that, like, say, like mohawks or something like that, that were styles that were popular in the 80s, they go away, but then they come back because a new generation finds interest in them. So, basically, the way I think about it is that, for me, and maybe people that are around my generation, there really is no such thing as retro gaming. But for there's actually 2 camps, I think, that consider some gaming retro. And the first is like the younger generation, maybe a generation younger than me. Because if you think about it, there are people like on YouTube now, maybe in high school or in college, whose first gaming system may have been like the Nintendo 64 or the PlayStation or something like that. And that's the first gaming system they got into, and they really didn't have any interest in anything before that. So they played their PlayStation, their Nintendo 64, then PlayStation 2, Xbox, and then the current generation. But now with this current generation of systems, you've got downloadable content. And a lot of that downloadable content are like older games. All you have to do is look at like the Wii's Virtual Console, and you'll see Nintendo games, Sega Master System games. And you even have these old arcade titles on the Xbox Live Arcade and the PlayStation Network. And now, like, this younger generation are seeing these older games, and to them, it's new stuff, even though it's old. So, if they get interested in it, to them, that is retro gaming, even though, to me, I've seen that stuff, and I've played that stuff before. I hope I'm not, kind of going, I hope I'm making some sense in the point I'm trying to come across. Also, on the other end, you do have those people that did grow up with, like, an NES or whatnot. And then, for whatever reason, they stopped gaming. I think a lot of people fall into that category. I think that the people that stuck with gaming, like myself, over the years, there's not that many of us. If you look at it like statistically wise or percentage wise, only a small percentage of people actually keep gaming their whole lives. And they always, just the people that always keep track of, games that are coming out. And they just never lose touch with it. But a lot of people do. They stop playing video games for the longest time. And maybe like 20 years later, they're like, oh, you know what? They dig out their old NES or they start playing all the older games they didn't play. And, you know, even though that stuff is old, it's new to them. Retro gaming. So, you know, to me, the definition of retro gaming really depends on your age and how often you've stuck with gaming. So that's basically where I'm at there. It's basically retro gaming is something that is old, but it's new to you. But I think that the term retro gaming got thrown around so much. I mean, you know, if you think about it, only within the last 10 years, I can think of retro gaming, you know, just popping up like crazy, especially since like 2006 with the Wii and all the newer consoles where you could download these games. So, you know, without a better lack of term of just saying old video games, people have just started saying, oh, it's retro gaming. And even the people, you know, like me, who've grown up playing this stuff, and to me it's not really retro gaming, it just came to define, you know, a certain, just a way of defining older games. Because you have newer games now. Like within the last couple of years, you look at Mega Man 9 and Mega Man 10. They're on the modern systems, but they're done in like the NES 8-bit style. Now, even though they're modern games, they can also be considered retro games. Just because of the style, I guess. So yeah, it just gets all confusing once you start labeling it. I still don't really like using the term retro, but thinking about it that way kind of helps to, you know, understand why a lot of people are saying retro games, especially if they never grew up playing like NES games and it's just brand new to them. It's like retro. Well, everybody's playing, like all the kids, are playing like Call of Duty, Black Ops, or Modern Warfare 2, they can, you know, there's other kids that can say, oh, I'm playing NES games, and they'll be like, oh, that's so retro, you know. You know, it kind of fits when you think about it that way. I mean, when I was in high school, everybody was playing NES and NES, Genesis, and Super Nintendo, and, you know, nobody really played Atari games at that time. But even if somebody did have an Atari and played Atari, it really wasn't considered retro. It wasn't that long ago. So, like, there was really nothing before that. But I could kind of see now where maybe, you know, kids that are in high school and college, if they're playing NES games or Genesis games, they're kind of like games that people have, you know, forgotten about, you know, just because you're trying to keep up with the newest and latest thing. So, yeah, I guess you could kind of consider that to be retro, but to people like me, it's not retro because I've never forgotten about that. That's always been in my mind. So yeah, I mean, also just another point IntellivisionDude was saying was that maybe there should be like categories like comic books where you have the Silver Age or, well, no, I'm not too into comic books, but, you know, there's Silver Age or, you know, whatever you call those. But I really don't think that we need separate categories for video games because there are already, you know, self-defining categories for video games. You have the first generation, second generation, third generation, or even if you just say, you know, the platform is like, oh, it's an NES type game, or it's a Super Nintendo type game, PlayStation type game, you kind of know the era or the type of game it's going to be. You could kind of understand where the game's coming from. So basically, this video is a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. I knew I was going to try and over-explain it, and but yeah, almost 10 minutes, 9 minutes now, 10 minutes. So I think that's a good place to stop. Please, if anybody thinks that I'm on the right track or thinks I'm way off, just let me know. That's just something I've been thinking about since I made that last video. I still think that retro games can be considered 2 generations ago or more, but then again, where the definition of retro gaming came from, you know, just in a summary, it's playing older games that you never really knew existed in a modern era. It's like games that people have forgotten about. But, you know, like I said, people like me that haven't forgotten about them, it's not really retro. So, I think I have talked a lot. So, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.
Mike, I think I'm freaking out.